Hello there, and a very warm welcome to another edition of Channels Beam. I'm Victor Matthias. Now, a roadmap has already been set for the digital economy and tech ecosystem of the country as the Minister of Communications, Innovation and Digital Economy, Dr. Bosun Tijani, I beg your pardon, reeled out his plans on how to get to the next level. Now, this encompasses 5 interconnected pillars that the minister says over the next 4 years, the blueprint will catalyze a digital transformation that will impact our entire population by connecting communities and businesses. On this episode of the program, we will be dissecting the blueprint, its practicability, and the possibility of achieving all contained in that document in the next 4 years. And joining us to look at this, we have from Lagos via Zoom, Victor Ikwealo. He joins us via Zoom from Lagos, as well as Jude Ferrami, who also joins us via Zoom as well from Lagos. It's a pleasure to have both of you join us on the show today.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm sure, Victor, I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So let's, kickstart the conversation. I mean, like I said, the minister has ruled out his plans, on how he intends to, on a sector by sector or on a pillar by pillar. Now, let me use his words. On a pillar by pillar, he has 5 pillars that he has outlined, that he intends to, follow to ensure that the ecosystem, moves from where it is, to the desired point, over the next 4 years. But in your own estimation, how practicable is this? Victor, kicks out the conversation for us. How practicable is this, looking at all of the pillars that he's put forward and how they are connected, how will this be put in place? I think your mic is on mute. If you can unmute yourself first, Victor. Victor, if you can hear me, I think your mic is on mute. Please unmute your mic and then come again.
Okay. First of all, I would like to say that I am very much excited by this plan, and the Federal Ministry of Communications, Innovation and Digital.
Go ahead, Victor. We can hear you.
I am unmuted.
Well, Victor, I guess there's a lag between our internet connectivity. So let me just hold you there for a bit and quickly move to Jude. Jude, let me get your thoughts on this. Looking at the 5 pillars, the interconnectivity, and the projection of what will be gotten out, if well harnessed and well put into, a plan, what would be the desired, what's it called now, outcome? All right, it seems we've lost both our guests, but, just for the benefit of those who, perhaps have not seen the blueprint of the minister, so it's pretty much, going to be rolled around about 5 pillars, which he pretty much outlined in his, in some tweets that he sent out some time back last week. Over the course of the week, he talked about some of the things that he intends to do, and that, like Victor was earlier saying, he's pretty much having some form of excitement, as to how all of that is going to happen. Some of the pillars include knowledge, policy, infrastructure, innovation, entrepreneurship, capital, and as well as trade. These are some of the things that the minister intends to, look at very much when he takes office fully. He's taken office, but he's taking his time to do these things on a pillar by pillar basis. If I would just move a little bit forward to see how he intends to take all of this, on a pillar by pillar basis. Just give me a second. Let me pull this out from some of his tweets that he sent some days back. Well, we'll just be looking at this before we try and get back our guest back on the show. Internet, like they say, which is one of the key things that the minister has also talked about, trying to ensure that the broadband of the country gets the required spread across the country to ensure that everybody is well connected online, so that everyone can be part of this development that we intend to see, coming forward, moving forward as he takes office fully. So let me just kickstart, with first of all, the things that he intends to do. So the major ministries that are going to help him, take a look at all of this. We have, of course, the Galaxy Backbone, the Nigerian Communications Commission. We have the Nigerian Communications Satellite Limited, the NDPC, which was just signed into law by the president not too long ago, which has now become a commission. That's the Nigerian Data Protection Commission. And of course, NIPOST also is going to be in the frame of everything that is going on in that place. And also we have the Nigerian Information Technology Development Agency, which has been at the forefront, of all of this in the past, alongside the Federal Ministry of Communications and Digital Economy as well. So these are the key drivers, those who would be driving alongside the minister, to ensure that he puts all of these things in place. So they have a strategic agenda which they intend to achieve between 2023 to 2027 with pillars, that I just made mention of. One of them is knowledge. Again, what they intend to do is to ensure that 3 million people, will have best training, technical training as well, to ensure that 70% of digital literacy is acquired or achieved by 2027. So the plan is to increase the level of digital literacy in the country, that's of the population, to 70% by 2027. And they also intend to position Nigeria in the 25th percentile of research globally in 6 key areas now. And these 6 key areas are artificial intelligence, unmanned aerial vehicles, IoT, robotics, blockchain, and additive manufacturing. These are quite very interesting areas to look at. But of course, we'll wait and see how things will unfold in the next 4 years, how all of these plans will be put in place to ensure that 70% of Nigerians get this digital literacy that we're talking about, or the ministry is talking about, and we see the required outcome from that as well. So talking about policy as well, so what they intend to achieve with policy, first of all, there are some policies that have been put in place in the past, let me just say 3 to 4 years, by the previous administration. So you're talking about the National Broadband Plan, you're talking about the policy on digital public infrastructure, you're talking about national policy on telecommunications, the blockchain policy as well, the policy on digital economy bill, the Nigerian Startup Act, which was widely celebrated, and of course the National Artificial Intelligence Strategy. But I'm beginning to believe that we have our guest back with us right on Zoom. Let me just quickly get to Victor again. Victor, we lost you there for a bit, but let's again get to know some of your thoughts. I was just reading out some of the policies or some of the areas around policy that the ministry and the minister intend to follow to ensure that their goal is achieved in the next 4 years. So I talked about the policies around broadband, around the startup, around blockchain. Let's now look at the possibility of implementing all of this to the letter.
Okay. Thank you very much, Victor.
Absolutely.
Like I was saying before we went over, I think I'm very much excited by all of this, right? And just going back historically, in the last 5-6 years, there has been renewed enthusiasm, renewed involvement of the government in just shaping the innovation and digital economy in Nigeria to a very large extent. But with the appointment of Dr. Bosun Tijani, I think this is one of the best plans that has measurable metrics. And I think that part is what I'm most excited about, the fact that there are metrics that accountability can be measured against. All of it has like numbers, has data, has actionable insights that in the next 4 years, you can see what is the progress. To answer the question of feasibility and actionability, a lot of these things are shooting for the stars and finding out where we land at the end of the day. If at the end of 4 years, all of this is not achieved to 100%, it is still going to be fair to measure it against the metrics that have been set and say, oh, okay, this thing was supposed to get to 40. I'm going to, off the top of my head now, I remember that one of the promises in the blueprint is to get Nigeria to 50 world power in AI, right? And I think we're currently 96 in AI readiness and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And in the next 4 years, even if we get to 60, that's still fair. That's still very fair by my estimate, right? So I think it's actionable. I think it's doable. I don't think it's something that can be handled with a lot of rigidity in terms of the metrics that have been set up. But I love that the metrics exist. And I'm excited for it generally. I'm just excited for it generally.
Like we always say, you know, aim for the moon. If you miss, at least you'd be in the sky. So I quite agree. If we don't achieve all of those, but at least we will get to a, you know, a reasonable point, so to speak. Now, but that apart, you know, one thing we always have is the ability to put up all of this, you know, fine documents and all of that. But again, implementation is pretty much always, you know, the recurring decimal that we have faced in terms of, you know, making a headway. So the drive now, how would you say you've seen the drive? How would you say there is that drive to ensure that all of this, you know, is implemented to the letter? Yeah, Victor, I'm coming to you again.
Sorry, I missed your question. Can you take that?
Oh, yeah, I'm looking at implementation. I mean, because like I said, we always have, you know, the fine documents. Like I reeled out about 7 documents that, you know, have been, yeah, you know, so of course, the Startup Acts, you know, got everyone excited, you know,
Yes.
Exactly. So the blockchain also, you know, got a lot of people excited as well, you know, but implementation now is what we need to begin to see. So what's the drive, you know, what is it like? What's the feeling like, you know, in terms of implementation?
Yeah, so I mean, like I mentioned earlier, right? I know just off the top of my head that there is a, what's the word? There is a strong team, and like a lot of work has gone into making this happen, right? It's something that I just know secondhand, right? And I can't speak to implementation, but I think I'm generally very positive about it. And the fact that it's detailed in its metric-based approach to solving this problem, you know, creating a better digital economy, kind of gives me more hope and confidence in its implementation. So I was having a conversation just a few minutes before getting on this call, and I'm like, when it comes to government implementation, and to be fair to, you know, the government and government people in Nigeria, it is really hard to get over bureaucracy and all those kind of things to implement with innovation. Innovation is always moving too fast for bureaucracy to catch up with. So this is always a problem in most parts of the world. Governments, institutions trying to implement on innovation is always a bit of a hit and miss a lot of times, right? And we know in Nigeria to a large extent, people have come with a lot of great intentions as to how they want to change stuff, how they want to do a lot of interesting and impressive things. And at the end of the day, implementation is not always great. Like we see it, implementation hasn't been great in the last couple of years. But like I said, I have a lot of confidence in this current plan, in this current blueprint, because it is measurable. It is easy to see that the plans that they have, even from an outsider perspective, looking at this thing, you can see that there is some intentionality that went into thinking about it and thinking through it. And that in itself, again, from an outsider perspective, gives me a lot of confidence, right? But I also just know that a lot of work has gone into this. And yeah, I'm sure that, you know, a lot of positive will come out of it in the long run.
Let me say that I share in your optimism as well, but let me quickly get to Jude, to get Jude Farami's, you know, thoughts on all of this. Jude, like you said, he's quite optimistic, he's quite excited as well. But what state are you in? How did you react? How did you feel when you saw all of this plans being rolled out by the minister sometime last week?
Yeah, thank you so much, Victor, for having me on the show. Like straight to your question, this is something that I believe excites everybody in the ecosystem. Also, largely not just because these are very good ideas, because like you already said, like Nigeria is not wanting for good policy documents, but the team behind those documents when it comes to implementation actually is what fuels the optimism that majority of us have within the ecosystem. And this is like a very general sentiment and feeling. And the reason for that is we've seen Dr. Boston Tijani implement some of these ideas, of course, not at a national scale in terms of touching all the 36 states in Nigeria, which he now has a mandate to do as the Minister of the Federal Republic. But you've seen all that work extend beyond Nigeria to countries like Kenya, countries like Namibia, South Africa. I mean, the work that CCHub has done, that background of having an idea, implementing it, seeing the impact. In startup world, we call it traction, right? So if you were a venture capitalist and you wanted to invest, you wanted to bet on a startup, you look at what traction do they have, what have they done before, are they able to implement this very good idea, not just at the unit level, but at scale, and then you bet your money on it. And this is the same bet that majority of us have within the ecosystem. But much more importantly, and I think I need to point this out, is the foundational knowledge that goes into these documents. We've seen a lot of documents and policy documents from government, but when you read through, you know that the team that has put this together has a fundamental understanding of what causes what and what needs to be tweaked and where the gaps are. So there's a very strong theoretical foundation within the very strong theoretical foundation within the team and the document that you can see clearly for yourself. That's number one. Number two here is, which is another very interesting thing I saw. Anybody who looks at the document will find this complexity index that they created. And that gives you an idea that the team knows that there will be different complex interactions for different projects and different goals. I mean, for anybody who's really looking who's really asking the question, are these goals implementable? That should give you an idea that this team led by the minister knows that for some goals, they will be less complex because there's an overarching control that the ministry has. For some other goals, it will involve inter-collaboration with other ministries, other departments, other agencies that might be outside of the control of the ministry, but maybe extending beyond at the level of the Federal Executive Council.
Well, I think, again, the internet has put us under this conversation we're having, looking at what the minister as well as the Ministry of Communications, Innovation and Digital Economy intend to do moving on in the next 4 years. So just before we went off, Jude Farami was just talking about some of the things that, he feels might be a problem, looking at, things that might be beyond the ministry. But I think the minister in his tweets. Okay, all right, Jude. I think I lost you for a bit there, but let me just quickly come in talking about those places where might be beyond the the purview of the minister as well as the federal. Isn't that where collaboration comes in? Perhaps between ministries or between the MDAs that are under the ministry. For instance, one would have thought that the National Identity Management Commission would be under this ministry, but for some reason it's under the Ministry of Interior. So shouldn't there be some form of collaboration now between the Ministry of Communications, Innovation and Digital Economy as well as that of Interior to see how they can, perhaps collaborate beyond all of the bottlenecks that they might be having to ensure that, things move on smoothly?
Yes, thanks again, Victor, which is why I mentioned the complexity index that you saw or that anybody who's reading the document would see. This was our expectation as well in terms of NIMC, the Nigerian Identity Management Commission, and how we can actually use digital to leverage the plans that the ministry has or the aspirations that we have as a country. You see what India did, for example, when it comes to their foundational ID. There was a lot of leveraging digital technologies to achieve that. But again, that interministerial collaboration is what then increases the complexity because minister to minister, they might be able to have a level of understanding of what needs to go on. But because you are not
well, again, we seem to be having network issues. Jude Farabee was just trying to put us through as to how, you know, on the ministerial level, you know, there could be this form of understanding. But however, well, I want to believe that he meant to say that, you know, on a base level, between the MDAs, there could be some bottlenecks. It might be regulatory. You know, it might also be constitutional as well, that might not be able to let them to have this free flow exchange of, you know, ideas or data, you know, open each other's books or files and all of that to ensure that everything works. So perhaps, Victor, if I may come to you again now, you know, looking at all of these bottlenecks, where does the judiciary come in, you know, because if such bottlenecks exist, you know, between the MDAs in terms of how to open up to each other, you know, how do we get the judiciary, you know, to strengthen or to open up the path, you know, that will make or will provide the arena for a seamless operation between agencies that, you know, have roles to play in ensuring a robust digital economy?
That's a very good question that I don't have an immediate answer to. Everything that's coming to my head with regards to this is very long-term, you know, that requires a lot of legislation, putting acts into place. And I think that to a very large extent, it kind of still points to what I talked about earlier about, you know, navigating bureaucracy for change, right? And I think to a very large extent, there's a scrappiness. So there's something we call in tech and startup, there's something called scrappiness, where you do what you can with what you have, you know. And I think there's a scrappiness that will have to come into this plan if we are waiting, or if they wait until there is a lot of like judiciary causeways and, you know, paths through things for intermediation and relationships. Nothing is going to get done. So I think there's a large scrappiness that has to come into the implementation of this plan from where I sit. And which is also one of the reasons why I'm allowing the concession that in the next 4 years or whatever the timeline is, when we go back and look at it, you can't say, oh, you didn't do 100% of this, so, you know, nail them to the cross and all that kind of stuff. But I don't have an immediate answer for that judiciary question. I just think that from the part of the ministry, there has to be a lot of scrappiness, a lot of just leveraging existing relationships to make things work.
Oh, well, we would have to wait and see how all of that will play out. But it's also good that you made mention of legislation. Of course, that is very key, you know, in ensuring that those bottlenecks are taken out of the way. So I want to put this back to you again, because it all again depends on the stakeholders. I mean, we saw how stakeholders had a massive back-end, how they drove the SNB, you know, and all of that. So are we likely to see that kind of drive again, you know, when there is a need for some form of legislation, you know, to ensure that something is put in good stead?
I think that is already happening to a very large extent. Like I mentioned earlier, there is I'm aware that like a lot of collaboration went into making this strategy happen, this plan happen. A lot of it is, I mean, of course, I'm not speaking to it officially because I'm not aware of it in an official capacity, but I know that like a lot of stakeholders were consulted, a lot of sit downs were had. And I'm sure that most of that will continue as time goes by. To a very large extent, one of the reasons that I'm confident in this, minus what I spoke to earlier about like the metric-based system that it's been run on, is that the visionary behind it is like Dr. Bosun Tijani has done this on a very private scale, you know, and it kind of makes it, you spoke to this earlier, it kind of makes it easier to believe that, you know, somebody has done this before, it's easier to replicate this. And like you mentioned, stakeholders have rallied around similar initiatives, you know, similar goodwill and all, and that has happened in the past, and I know that that is currently happening now. So I just expect it to continue going forward. And the more we're beginning to see these plans being actualized in like maybe 1 year, parts of these plans are being actualized, it's just going to increase the optimism. And the beauty of the digital economy is that it's a leveler. So there is no, it's usually very bipartisan. It's usually it's no respecter of like creed, tribe or anything. Everybody is involved in a way that just removes that, friction that usually comes with politics and policy. So once those goals or those plans are beginning to be actualized, the metrics are ticked off on a timely basis, it will even win over more converse, and people will not have any option than to come over, like more stakeholders will come on board. So I think a lot of that, like a lot of the success of it, a lot of like stakeholder collaboration is hence dependent on the short-term success of actualization to a very large extent.
Clearly we'd have to wait and see how all of that will play out. But Jude, just as we wind down, also let me get your thoughts on collaboration, between stakeholders. Of course, in the past we saw how stakeholders came out vehemently, to challenge some of the bills or some of the policy documents that were put forward, by NIDA, by the ministry as well. So are we likely to see that, happen again? Because people who are acting as gatekeepers need to remain on their toes to ensure that, legislation or policy, does not sneak in that would gag, especially the use of social media and even, technology generally.
Yeah, again, thanks, Victor. Let me just start by saying that the level of collaboration that you need, especially when it comes to public sector innovation, quite a bit. One, across all the levels, from federal, states, local governments. So you see the broadband plan, for example, the Land Use Act places land in charge of the governors. If you want to lay broadband and reach those goals, it means that from the federal level and the state level, you have to interact. Look at the National Digital Economy Act, which is in the plan as well. Now this has to do with
Jude, I must apologize, and it seems like network is kind of putting you off again. But I have to say that this is where we'll have to hold the conversation today. Thank you so very much, everybody, for watching us also, and also to everyone who joined us as well, via Zoom to make their contributions to this very important topic. Thank you again for watching. I'm Victor Matthias. It's bye for now.